Welcome to the Friday live stream once again. My very good friend Scott Kurtz has agreed to come out and talk comics with us today. Man, we've got people joining us already. D-Fish is in the house, as well as Brian Rhodes. Frank Page is here. Volt is joining us. Janko is here. Thank you so much for joining us on a Friday, everybody. We've got a lot of great stuff on tap for you already. Scott was talking about coming right out of the gates with one of the hot topics of art today, artificial intelligence. What's on your mind?
Okay, I have a new theory about AI art.
Ooh, let's hear it.
Okay, so we both immediately start drinking water.
And I know we got to hydrate. We're old men, Scott. We've got to stay hydrated. Ugh, where'd you get that?
I saw someone online. I'll send you a link. Send you a link.
Perfect.
All right. I have changed my whole opinion about artificial intelligence.
Okay.
I use it constantly. I use ChatGPT all the time. My oldest and dearest friend, Rob Schiebel, is an English teacher, and he uses it all the time. One of my favorite things to do with ChatGPT is, or any other AI model you want to use, is to get it to help me with the stuff I'm really bad at.
Yeah.
One of the things that has just been really, really difficult for me moving into Kidlit is having done things on my own, where self-publishing, where the only person disappointed if a deadline isn't hit is me.
Right.
I don't know how to tell anybody when something's going to be done. Right? When they say, okay, well, you have 200 pages. What date in the future will you be done with sketching? Yeah. And my brain just goes, cocoon. I don't even know what to say. So what I end up doing is over-promising or under-promising or not answering, and it's caused me all kinds of problems. So what I do is I go into ChatGPT and I say, who, by the way, I told, the first thing I told ChatGPT is I'm going to call it Chad GPT, because I don't feel, so I'm less scared of it, and it's fine with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I go, Chad, here's my problem. I explained to it just the way I explained it to you. And it says, yeah, I get that. What's the project you have? And so I said, I've got this many pages. And they're like, well, how many pages do you think realistically you could draw in a week? And I said, if everything goes right and I don't get lazy or screw up or something, this many.
Yeah.
Best case this, worst case this, don't count weekends.
Right.
And it broke down a schedule for me, and it just took that off my head.
Right. Yeah. And took that, like that kind of analytics side and said, all right, here's what you got to do. Chunk, something you can put into a calendar, and then you can follow it. And it's something that you would have never done on your own. Right.
Yeah. And also, I check it. You've got to go back and read it and check it and see that it didn't just spit something out that is dumb. And I think there's going to be less and less of that as these models get better. But, another thing I did was I wrote an outline for a potential book 3, which is pretty long. And I fed it into ChatGPT and said, can you give me a synopsis of this? Thinking it would give me like a 1-paragraph recap of the outline so I could give that to my editor as well.
Yeah.
And instead it analyzed the outline.
Ooh.
And it said, you're missing a couple beats here. This character doesn't really have an arc. You might want to consider breaking this into 2 parts. It fed me a graph of like the beats of my story. Mm-hmm. I didn't even know it could do that.
Right.
Now, it didn't write it for me.
No.
But anyway, what I was saying to Angie is, I think that this has gotten there's some real problems with artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to art. There needs to be an opt-in for, these companies don't need to steal art to build their models. They're just
Right.
doing it's cheaper and quicker to scrape. 1 second, please. Can you two knock it off? Don't play in the other room.
For those of you listening at home, that's Scott's dogs. Oh, gee whiz.
I mean, my God.
Yeah.
But Rob's wife is an environmentalist. She runs an environmental company, and
Mhm.
she's on the board of directors for the Iowa Water Board. 1/3 of the water that's used in Des Moines, Iowa, 1/3 of it is used to cool down the servers for ChatGPT. They've got a ChatGPT server farm in Des Moines.
Really?
1/3 of Des Moines'
1/3.
water
Yeah.
goes to cooling down the ChatGPT servers. So
Right.
look, there are some real environmental concerns. There's moral and ethical and legal concerns, but it's not going away. We just need
No.
to address those problems.
Hey,
But
explain
here's
something to me, because we're right now at a juncture where I've heard this so many times and I'm scared to say it because I don't want to reveal how dumb I am. But you won't call me dumb. So 1/3 of the water used in Iowa used for cooling down the servers.
in
Does
Des Moines, yeah, specifically in Des Moines, I think.
does that mean that water is trapped in the servers and can't get out and can't get used? Or does that mean that it's going through their system, getting put down the drain, back into the waterworks and back into the general supply?
I think it's not being used for anything else. I think it's being used for that. It's cooling down the servers.
In other words, they put it into a closed circuit and then we don't
Yeah,
have
I think
access
so.
to that. It's not as if,
No.
because originally I'm like, well, because I was trying to parse it, I was trying to put it into a framework, and it's like, well, okay, if they're using it to cool it down and then putting it back into the system, that's one thing. And
I
then
don't
we
think
have to
no.
take a look at
That
how the
wasn't the
system,
im
but
no,
it's
that's
more
not
like,
the import.
here's water that you don't get to drink anymore. It's 1/3 of the supply that you don't get to drink anymore, and it's just being used to cool down these servers. And that is a problem.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's crazy. It's just I think there are incredible energy and environmental concerns around AI, which I
Mm-hmm.
think can, it's yeah, Ryan here saying the water gets contaminated, it's expensive to repurpose. Absolutely, I'm
Okay,
sure.
contamination was something I hadn't even
Yeah.
thought of either. Yeah,
But okay, so like I'm curious because the term AI is this branding term and it's not really accurate, you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
But like, okay, so for the longest time we've had uh um voice to text,
Right.
right? Where you can talk into a microphone and it transcribes it to text. And for a while there was an app called Dragon something, I don't remember what it was. But that's AI. That's
Mm-hmm.
pattern recognition. That's what AI is, right? So when it's the tool that lets you talk into your phone and it puts it into speech, that's not scary. And that's not bad. And
Right.
that's
Yeah.
not evil. But when it's ChatGPT, it is. Now, I'm talking about it separate from the concerns that we were just discussing. Obviously these companies can afford to pay artists and not steal their work. It's just cheaper and quicker to scrape it.
Right.
All this needs to be addressed. Disney and Universal suing OpenAI is going to be a big thing. But here's all that was leading up to me saying this. This whole proliferation of AI art has become a great way for people that are in my opinion really wish they could create but are too lazy to just put in the time. Not just to make the art, but to be bad at it for several years to then be able to make what they want to make, right?
Yeah.
And I'm seeing a proliferation of brand new comic book creators that are pitching this comic and it's all AI stuff. The AI
Yeah.
wrote it, AI's putting it out. Now they get to say they make comics. And we all kind of agree that's kind of crappy. Here's the thing that is going to get me in trouble. The other thing that this is doing I hate is artists that can make comics that now this is their no excuse why they're failing.
Oh, oh, okay. I see what you're saying. So,
This
in
is
other
their
words,
new excuse as to why their comic isn't taking off why they're not able to execute. It's because
Yeah.
AI is coming, and now all of their content is AI with the Ghostbusters line through it, and AI is bad, and like all their Instagram, they're not posting comics, they're not
Right.
posting art, they're not writing anything. They're just this. They're now their content is championing against AI,
Yeah. Well, I've
and
said
it's
that. I said that earlier, and I probably on one of the episodes of Comic Lab where I said we were talking about AI was going to take jobs, and I said, is it though? Because most of the jobs, quote unquote, that AI is going to take, not all, but a good chunk of these jobs that are being taken up by AI are jobs that nobody was going to pay for in the first place, or the kind of job that you'd go to your neighbor's kid and have him do something. It used to be, you'd go to your neighbor's kid and he would do something on MS Paint and that would be your logo and you'd give him a couple bucks. These jobs were never jobs. These are all stuff that people were too cheap to pay for in the first place. And now they've got an easy access to Chat GPT, so they go there instead. But you never lost a job. They were never going to pay you in the first place.
there are artists losing jobs to AI.
Definitely.
And they are production artists. And so here's a perfect example. When I lived back in Dallas and Straub was in Dallas too, he had a period of time where he took a job at Mary Kay Cosmetics because they had their big headquarters in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
And his job for Mary Kay Cosmetics, and it paid well, was to sit in their big headquarters in front of a computer and use the Photoshop clone and healing tool to remove blemishes from all their artwork.
Oh, yeah.
So
I'm
all the
sure
Mary
that becomes
Kay,
important. Yeah.
all the models, he would just touch up, remove the blemish, remove this, remove an odd grain or a pimple or whatever.
Yeah.
And that's hours of tedious work that someone had to do that Mary Kay paid for. Now that's all gone. That's all AI. But that people have been losing their jobs to AI on that for years. It wasn't called AI at the time because it wasn't cool to call it that. It was the new feature of Photoshop, which is
Right. Right.
you hit the button and the filter takes out all the bad stuff, right?
Yes.
So again, it's this weird branding. But what people need to realize is that AI right now doesn't have we're in a voice economy now. You're in the currency that you're in now is the voice currency.
Yeah.
It's your voice, it's your view on the world, your expression. AI can't do that. It can try you can get to try to execute your voice
Yeah.
and mimic it, but it doesn't have its own.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time it does, now we're talking about something else.
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Now it's an artificial peer. Now it's Data painting in Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's exactly as you're describing this. It's like when you were describing Chat GPT going through and analyzing your script and giving you suggestions, right? And I'm sure you're gonna take those and judge them on their own merits. And some of them you're gonna do. Some of them you're like,
Mhm.
not quite so much. But it is kind of like for geeks like you and me, it's the closest that we've come yet to having our own Lieutenant Commander data,
Yeah,
right?
and it did. There was something that it spit out I disagreed with, but the thing about it did kind of point out that one of my character arcs was weaker, and that I could split one section into two and flesh that out. And it also pointed out how my antagonist was missing a motivation. And the interesting thing is that I know where it got that from. It got that from learning from somewhere.
Right.
The typical breakdown of the script, the 3-act construct, the story circle, all that stuff, and it was just
Yeah.
kind of spitting it out at me. But
Mm-hmm. By the way, as we come to a short break here, do you see who's with us? Our author friend just jumped into the chat.
oh my gosh, Shayna.
Yeah.
So
Now we got to
I was talking to Angie.
sit up straight and get our act together now.
I know. So I was talking to Angie about Shayna last night because Shayna said, "Did you see that Shayna? Her book is got one rogue coffee ground. Um, her book is um now been 11 weeks on the New York Times best-selling list.
11. Holy cats.
And I just shook my head and I said, no one knows how many years she spent
Yes.
writing books, submitting books, having publishers say, "We love it, but we don't want this one.
Yes.
We really like your writing. We want to see your next book," or this book is amazing, but we're not doing this right now. Like,
Yeah.
so her response was, "I'll just write another book." And I mean, how many years? the number of years that she just didn't quit.
Yeah. Yes.
And
it's so easy to be in the right place at the right time when you're always there.
Yeah.
Right?
When
she
you
just
quit.
Yeah, determination.
I mean, and then I was asking her this because we did a Barnes and Noble thing together where we talked at a Barnes and Noble, and I said, "How many books did you write didn't go anywhere?" And she told it was like 5 or 6, I think. She could tell us. It's more, probably more.
Yeah.
And then someone's like, "Can we read those, in the audience?" And she said, "Well, I'm hanging on to them because they might be books now."
That's right.
But
that's right. They're never gone. It's never gone. It's always there. All that work that you did is never lost. She had to do maybe those 5 to get to number 6. But now that she's got this one that's got everybody's attention, she's got 5 in the hopper, that I have no doubt in my mind are good books.
Yeah, that I have no doubt in my mind are good books. And I also have no doubt in my mind that because she wrote them back then, she's not interested in doing anything. She probably hates them if she's anything like me.
She's anything like me. There's nothing I hate worse than going into old work. I even if I've got to do it to clean it up for a book or something that like a graphic novel printing. Oh man, it's tough. It's tough. As much as I am a very positive, upbeat person, I don't like looking at my old art. I hate it. It's tough. It's tough. You see all the warts.
Do you, I bet you do like this though. Do you ever like going back and reading a strip that you forgot you wrote that makes you laugh?
Yes. Oh my God. That's happened a couple of times because I've been doing for Blue Sky. I've been seeing a lot of engagement there. So I've been kind of like, well, this is the time. So find some reasons to up your engagement. I've been doing This Week in Evil Lake, where I'll go back through my archive and I'll see, okay, what did I do on January 6th through on every year, right? And so these things pop up and it's stuff that's 10 years old. And when you catch yourself with a punchline that you weren't expecting and you're the one that wrote it, it's like, oh my God, I actually was funny. That was amazing.
Yeah, I did it. Okay, I was good.
The stuff that I'll publish tomorrow, I still am not 100% sure that it was funny.
Right.
But I had one just recently. Where the kid said something along the lines of, I lost the science fair to Jerry because Jerry has 2 dads, and his dad says, "Well, that doesn't seem quite right. What was his science fair project?" He says, "Cloning."
That's so
unbelievable. And then you look at that and you say, okay, on that day I was funny. That was fantastic.
I was flipping through old PVPs trying to find one strip.
Yeah.
And I came across a strip I drew one day that had nothing to do with PvP. It's just a vampire. And this teenager comes in and the vampire says, he goes, I have it here. What did I do with it? He goes, where have you been? It's almost sunrise. And the teenager is like getting in his coffin. And he goes, leave me alone. You're not my real dad. And the last panel, the vampire goes, this is why you never turn teenagers. And I don't know. I was like, what? Where did this come from? When did I write this? I must have just had a stray idea in my head.
Yeah. Or it sounds to me like it came out during Twilight, because that would have had to have been it, right?
I did have a Twilight strip because Angie was really into those movies. And there's a scene in the movie where Bella says, I know what you are. And Edward goes, say it. She goes, you're a vampire. And I did a strip and it's Bella. And she's like, I know what you are. And he goes, say it, but you don't see him. It's off panel. And then the last panel, it's her and Count Chocula. And she goes, Chocula. Like, what? Yeah, you find all these old strips you did and you're like,
Yeah, it's great. It is encouraging because it takes a long time before you get to that point. I still remember the gist of it, a year, 2 years, but 10 years back, you can actually catch yourself by surprise and really, really catch yourself off guard.
Scott, what is your skincare routine? How is it you look younger these days? I do not look younger these days. No way, man.
You've got good hair. I gotta tell you, as mine gets thinner and thinner, I get
Yeah,
more and more jealous of that
I'm
mop
getting a
of hair
little.
you got.
I'm getting some gray,
Oh. Yeah, how
but
much? I'm not that much older than you. 2 years? I'm 56.
I'm 54.
2 years older. Look at all
Yeah,
this. Look at this
I
gray.
know.
The only thing I got going for me is that I got the Reed Richards temples, and it's the only thing I
I
wanted when
know.
I was a kid. And I can't tell you how happy I am to have Reed Richards gray.
Yeah.
It's the only thing I got going for me.
Well, and I'm getting it too, and I really like it. I don't know why I do like it, but I do like it. Um, I was going to show you this. So this is. Remember when we went to Austin with my dad
Yes. Oh, I'll never forget that trip.
and we went to Wizard World? So what year was that, do you think?
It was the year of the hurricane, not Katrina. Somebody down south helped me out, or no, somebody on the east. It was the hurricane that came up
It was
the
two
East
okay, it was
Coast.
2012.
There you go.
All right,
There
so
you go.
this is 2012. So how many years ago is that? 10,
A,
15?
at least 10,
At least 10.
because it's
Well,
20,
yeah, at least
it's
10. All right.
2025 now. Yeah.
You ready for
Don't make
this?
me, don't, yeah.
You ready for this?
Yeah. Oh my God. Look at that hair. Oh, and the little curl in the back. The bad thing is, Scott, I still have that shirt and I almost wore it today.
I have shirts that old too, man.
I know. The only time I get a new shirt is if I go to a convention or something. They're handing them out for free.
Here's my friend Rob in the chat. Most of Kurtz's hair is implants.
Well, you got that Joel Hale thing going on, huh?
Rob's favorite thing to do is to go into my Facebook posts, especially when I'm saying something sincere, and he'll say something really inappropriate, and no one knows we're best friends that have known each other since the 5th grade, and it shuts the conversation down. So when I got this tattoo,
Yeah.
I did this big Facebook post explaining why I got it and how it was like to kind of like help me understand the permanence of taking my dad in because
Yeah.
he'd had a bunch of strokes and I was his caregiver. And it's like, this is my life now from now on. And this is like this whole thing. And everyone's
Yeah.
like commenting, oh, that's so beautiful. And Rob comes in and goes, boo hoo. Your dad gets the sniffles and suddenly you're Moana.
Oh my God.
I'm
Suddenly your
losing it.
Moana is such a death cut.
And then he wrote in all caps, cultural appropriation.
Oh my God. Yeah.
And it's shut down the whole Facebook thread. And he and I are the only ones that appreciate it. It's so mean.
There's something about a friend that you can be vicious with that I really appreciate. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, yeah.
somebody that you love so much that you can say anything and it's like, that it's okay. I'm not angry or trying
Yeah.
to hurt your feelings. You can just cut loose with them. It's the best thing.
Yeah. Absolutely.
So, folks, if you have questions, thoughts, comments, if you want to hit the comments and pitch a topic, we've got lots of things to talk about. Just putting a cap around that artificial intelligence thing. The thing that I'm seeing an awful lot is that artists who are outwardly very angry about AI art seem to be secretly using AI for writing or as a writing assistant. And
Yeah.
writers, and you can see this on Substack all the time, writers who would be outraged over artificial intelligence are using AI art for their images on Substack.
Oh, all the time.
And that part really, because I think at some point there's going to be like a tipping point and everybody's going to shrug and say, yeah, here we are. Like you said earlier, very pragmatic. this is where we are. It isn't going away.
Lots of YouTube thumbnails are AI generated.
Yes. And you can
Lots of
tell.
YouTube thumbnails.
The interesting thing in cartooning is it seems to me that AI has developed a house style. In other words,
it changes.
These days, if somebody's using an AI cartoon, I can pick it up like that because it's almost.
And also the color palette. It's a very.
Yes.
Yeah. And it's got a grain to it as well.
Yeah.
Have you seen the new TikTok trend with the new Google VO3 video AI?
No, at least I don't think I have. What is it?
It's actually very funny. It's a new trend where everyone is using the Google Gemini tool to make videos where it's like Bigfoot doing a vlog. So it's like photorealistic Bigfoot holding a selfie stick doing a blog from the woods.
Yeah.
Like one of them's like, "Oh, I just ate I stole a bunch of spicy tacos from some camper's tent. What was in that salsa?" And it's just there's a million of them now, and they're all hilarious. But
oh my God, no, I have not seen that.
We need to work out this. We need to work out the ethical parts of it.
Yes.
But here's something I want to point out. Okay,
do
because we're cartoonists, and we love the art, and I think it's important to understand that a big chunk of our history as cartoonists is that we're here and the art form is here because of the proliferation of photography. So back in the day, if you had a book, if you had that needed illustrations, or a medical journal that needed illustrations and diagrams and stuff, you hired an engraver and an artist to make those illustrations for you so you could print them.
Yeah.
And then photography came into place. And why do you need to pay someone to draw a building when you can just take a picture of the building?
Right.
And so it put a lot of illustrators out of work.
Mm-hmm.
And they had to find other things to do. And one of the things they found to do was editorial cartooning and more expressive forms of things that a photograph couldn't do.
Yes. More. In other words, a photograph could show you that actual building. What a cartoonist or an illustrator could do is show you what that building would be if the building had a face and a personality, like in Roger Rabbit's Toontown. In other words,
the photograph can also comment on the politics behind what went into putting the building up.
In other words, the illustrators had to become more creative. That's really what it came down to. Instead of being technicians, they had to lean into creativity because that's the one thing that photographs couldn't do. Yeah.
The photograph doesn't have a voice. It is.
Yes.
We are in a new voice economy. And I think the sooner people realize that, the less scary it'll be.
Yeah.
Eliopoulos. Here's Eliopoulos jumping in.
I'll throw down, Chris says, do either of you have rituals when you start working? I know it's a placebo effect on me, but I have a few little things that I do before I write to get me in the right headspace. So Scott, work rituals, either writing or art. Do you have things you do, things you go through to get yourself in the mental space?
Yeah. And you picked a really crazy time to have this because it's when I do one of my rituals, which is about this time every morning is when I have my first real big coffee shit.
You help that gets the ideas flowing?
Yeah, no, I do. And I have dumb tricks that I do as well.
Yes.
Yeah. Like, when I was doing the comic strip, I found that if I had because I had the template of my panels and for many, many years, the template was one strip. And when I changed my template to 3 stacked strips, I got more done because my head said, the page isn't done until I've drawn 3.
You're not done yet. You still have more to go. That's interesting.
And also when I've looked at it, it was, okay, I got to finish this. And now my goal was to fill the page, which is 3 strips, not to fill the page, which was 1 strip.
Yeah.
So I do dumb tricks like that too.
That's a great mental trick.
Yeah, I do have dumb rituals. I always have to, I have a very messy kind of environment around me. Sometimes I end up with a lot of stacks. But my immediate desk has to be very clean and clear before I can get started. Yeah, which is weird.
Yeah, in fact, I use that against myself. If something's got to get done, I'll put it in a sticky note and make sure that it's in my way. So I
Yeah.
literally have to get it out of my way,
Yeah.
figuratively and literally, or else I can't get the work done,
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'll do that to myself too. Do you have a writing spot in your work area? Do you have a special spot where you write?
I don't think so. No. Uh, do you mean other than when I sit down to write by kind of sort of napping,
that
and then
that works. That works.
yeah, and then
I have been known to let myself get very close to sleep because your
yes,
brain does enter
yes,
into a different pattern. And the only problem is sometimes I click right off
yeah.
and I'm
Then I
out. And then I
sleep.
wake up
Yes.
an hour later and go, well, that wasn't very productive. But yeah, and this I weaponize against myself too. I've got a drawing spot. It's that chair. When you were in the small studio, that's where you set up. I've got a special soft
Right.
chair. I've got a soft chair and I got a little end table there and a light. And when I sit down in that chair, it's time to write. And sometimes that kicks me into writing mode. Sometimes when it just isn't happening, I can pick up from that chair and move to the other side of the studio and then sit down. And then sometimes that kind of jostles my brain. It's like, okay, time to get serious and we'll do
Yeah.
that. But I have gotten, as much as I try not to get too fetishy about drawing and writing, I do find after all this time, like there's a certain type of pencil that I insist on using. I've used
Really?
this, yes, one of those. I'm just looking around to see if I've got one here within easy grabbing distance. I don't have it's one of those, those yellow mechanical pencils that you twist to make the lead come up.
Oh
I got
yeah.
I got to use one of those. If I'm in ink, I got to use one of these Pilot G2s, not the little one. It's got to be the 0.7 with the thick, lots of ink. I got to use
Damn,
that if I'm
Brad.
ink. And I've got to use a Canson sketchbook that's hardbound because I won't take
You
it
need all
seriously
that
if
to
it's,
write?
yeah. I wouldn't say I need it. Like if I was off in a cabin and I had to get something done, I'd do it. But that's how I feel most comfortable.
My phone won't charge. Why won't my phone charge? God, I'm such an old man.
It's too
Why
bad
doesn't this work now? For the love of Christ.
As we're at a break in the action here, Stan has a great way of putting it. He says it's called playing chicken with the subconscious. Adam Jones joining us today says, along the same lines, do you have any positive encouragement or messages that you give yourself to get going? I've got one, and at this point, it's become kind of trite. But I do say it all the time, and I live by this. And that is, it's, and Scott will be the first one to know. I've had to change it because originally I said it's impossible to get worse at something you do every day. I've had to change that because I've seen some people give it a really good try. So now I say,
Have you finally come around to my thinking on
yeah.
that?
Well,
You know I disagree with you on that.
now I say it's hard to get worse at
Okay.
something you do every day because I have seen some people that have been doing this
Some
for a
people
long time.
Yeah, some people really have done a good job pulling that off.
And it's almost willful ignorance. In other words, they almost try to stay the same. They value consistency over growth, or maybe it's Dunning-Kruger. We've had that conversation before. Maybe they literally just don't know enough to know what they don't know. But I have seen at this point in comics, I have seen some people out there that you look at them, it's like, you've been doing this for a long time and you are not getting any better.
Do you remember the comic strip Sluggy Freelance?
Yes, I at one point ruled the landscape in the early 2000s.
It was the strip. Yeah. Have you been over to see what he's doing these days?
I'm afraid I have not. I don't know
If you
when
go
the
to his
last time.
website,
Yeah.
visit that Sluggy Freelance website. It looks like it's the website from 98.
Wow. Really?
And it's current.
That's amazing to me.
It's the today's strip is up there. He's still going. But the website has not changed.
Yeah.
Like, not even to the resolution that computers have now. I
Really?
don't Yeah, I don't know what the
Wow. I
I'd love
remember
to pick his brain
I
about why.
remember when he was so hot, there was people lining up at his booth and I think, yeah, it was Plan 9 Publishing. There's another
Yep.
blast from the past for you. Plan 9 Publishing, people would line up at his booth, and that's when the midriff look was first really, really hot. And there'd be usually young women with their midriff, and he was signing sluggy.com, and their navel would be the dot. And you'd see these people all over the comic convention.
No.
You
No.
don't remember that?
He was signing their tummies?
He was signing their midriff, yes, and the navel was the dot. I thought that was so smart, except I knew it was never going to work for me because my site was greystoneinn.net, and it would have been this much. I would have had to start on their back. Of course, also the fact that nobody wanted this.
No.
Nobody was asking for my autograph on their navel. But yeah, that was how he was really like he was the
Yeah,
T-Rex
he was.
of the early period of webcomics.
Mhm. Mhm.
Is
He
it
was a
really lettered with Comic Sans? Somebody just jumped in saying it was lettered with Comic Sans. Is that the truth? Holy cats. I didn't know that about that either. Yeah, that's
sure is,
interesting.
Brad.
That is interesting. Yeah, I do. I do. And so, what do you have any things that you tell yourself when you get into a dark mental place? Something that you kind of tell yourself to pull yourself up and get going again?
I don't know how to answer this right now because this is a problem that I'm struggling with right now.
Yeah.
So,
All
yeah,
right.
I talked to a therapist about it. Like,
Yeah.
my best friend Rob has been trying to beat this out of me, but there's a lot of, um yeah, you have to understand that, this is gonna sound like a real big sob story, but, like, I had a whole I started as one cartoonist, then we grew it to, like, a company, and I had, Shayna, her husband Corey was my business guy and my partner. Angie worked with us. We had a couple artists that were doing stuff for us under contract, and we had, a bunch of projects, and we did 5 cons a year and 2 Kickstarters a
Yeah.
year, and, it was a pretty nice company, and then between, taking dad in and COVID, it all just kind of imploded, and then during the pandemic, everyone just kinda had to do what they could to survive, and thank God, Corey built this wonderful company with, a bunch of his partners and friends called Crown, and they do store fulfillment and Kickstarter fulfillment for a lot of creatives and for other companies. And he built that, um, which is great because I wasn't in a position to help him, and he put so much into Toonhound. And then when we all came up for air again, web comics had changed so much. That's when I decided to pivot into Kidlit.
Yeah.
So I'm rebuilding from nothing, really. And so I have been spending the last 2 or 3 years just beating myself up for being a failure. For I spent 25 years building this thing and it all blew away, if
Right.
tumbled like a house of cards and blew away.
And
And,
I remember from those early days, that was one of your greatest fears, right? That you had built this
yeah,
thing and it was so it could collapse
yeah,
in any number of different ways. And I remember you sharing that.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because when you build a company, you do things that you wouldn't do when you're just one person, right? Like, you borrow from April to pay for March, right? Like,
Mm,
so you spend some money even though you're gonna have expenses in the next month because the profits from this, when they hit, will then cover that and blah, 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 and it all works as long as you're continuing.
right, right. Cash
But
flow.
yeah, but when it stops, someone's left without a chair,
Right.
and then if you're an LLC, then your all that company debt becomes your personal debt.
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's also a thing. But you know, it's not like it's not like we it's not like it happened because we were doing something wrong, or that um we mismanaged, or we made bad choices, or we were bad people.
Right.
Life happened,
Yeah.
and it
Yeah.
the personally for me, it kicked me in the noids, and then globally it kicked everybody in the noids,
Yeah.
and so that was the 1-2 punch. And so when I look around, and you especially with social media, where you only see the corner of everybody's life that's going great,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you're
The
like,
highlight
"Oh,
reel.
well, I don't have 6 conventions a year, and I'm not on a book tour, and I'm not doing this, and I'm not doing that." And so
Right.
I really I'm really shitting my mess kit, I guess, and I blew the whole thing, and now I'm 54, unemployable, and I can't do anything else,
Right.
and now my whole family has to just cover for Scott because he just had to make cartoons. Because in the 4th grade, he decided he's gonna be a cartoonist, and we're all just sitting here helping Scotty live out
Ah.
his dream, and that's
And yeah, and I know that's how it feels in between your ears, inside your head. But I also know that there's not a single member of your family, if I pull them aside and said, "Okay, you can tell Brad the truth," just they'd never
mm-mm.
parse it that way. They'd never frame it that way. In 100 years, they wouldn't. But it's what
Yeah,
happens between
my
your ears.
we keep this whole thing is gonna just keep coming back to Shayna.
Yeah.
My wife was like, "Oh, boo-hoo." And I'm like, "Excuse me?" And she's
If
like,
you're not getting it from Rob, you're getting it from your wife.
"How dare you? You decided you wanted to make a book, and in 6 months you had an agent and a book deal, and Shayna's over there writing book after book after book,
Yeah.
and you can't see that you can't see your win?"
Yeah. Yeah.
You
Take
know?
the win, right?
And Kevin McShane, when I'm like, "Kevin, we need to start a podcast," and Kevin would be like, "Shut up and finish your book," you know? But,
Yeah.
you know? But yeah, I mean, look, you gotta, I'm really lucky in the sense that I have such a strong support group, and I have Rob and Angie and Shayna and Corey and all these people, and you.
Yeah.
I can't tell you the number of times I've called to cry on your shoulder. And, there's a nice combination of, "Come on, man, we love you," and also, "Come on, man, you wise up." And, uh, and so, yeah, and yeah, just, everyone has been really supportive, really, really supportive, and so, I couldn't ask for more. But
Yeah.
you gotta go for help. And,
It's well,
yeah.
our friend Erica Moen has been doing so much work, especially in the comics sphere, destigmatizing that, right?
Yes.
Talking about that in a positive way, saying, avail yourself of that help when you need that help. And I knew you were here, Erica. I want you to hear that I think you're amazing. And
Yeah, for
Erica
her
did
to
Erica did an amazing amount of work destigmatizing that, right?
Yes, I have a phrase that I use to describe Erica. I've never used it in front of her, so I hope this doesn't get me in trouble. But the dichotomy of Erica Moen that impresses the shit out of me is I always call her a China doll that loves to parachute.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see
She
that.
is because you can see she's a very fragile soul,
Yeah.
but
You
she
wouldn't
just
you wouldn't
jumps.
look at her and say there's somebody who's looking to get into a fight. And
No,
yet,
I mean, look, Erica's, she's wears it all on her sleeve,
yeah, yeah.
and but she jumps out of that fucking plane every goddamn time. And she's like, I'm terrified. I'm in my own head. I don't know what's happening next, but I'm not helping anybody if I keep it all in my head.
Yeah. Here I go.
Every
Bing.
fucking time.
Yeah, yeah.
And
She's
God bless her
amazing.
for it.
And to be, I mean, to have all of that is one thing, and to have all of that and be an excellent cartoonist and everything that entails
Yeah.
is another thing altogether.
To
It's
have the
just
bravery to share it. So that's what's so impressive about her to me is that She is I want like it's weird. It's so weird because like I want to promote Erica and protect her at the same time.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
I've never wanted to be like, here, you need to see this, but also like, get away. She's under our protection, you know.
Right.
But like
Right.
when she did Strip Search, remember Strip Search?
Oh, yes, I do remember that.
My favorite thing out of all of Strip Search, and this sums her up to a T, is one of the questions they were all being interviewed, and one of the questions was, "When did you lose your virginity?" And it's supposed to rock you, right?
Yes.
And they say to Erica, the girl, the interviewer goes, "When did you lose your virginity?" And she goes, "Which virginity?" And I was like, "Oh my god!" Just she just Shaolined that question right back. That like Erica was like, "Oh, be like water,"
Yeah. Yeah.
and then you saw the interviewer go,
Oh, just turn the tables right on that person. That's beautiful.
Erica was like, "Uh, you sweet summer child,
Yeah. Yeah.
which virginity
God. Yeah.
do you speak of?"
That's amazing. That's amazing. Uh, again, if you have questions, comments, jump in. We've got about 15 more minutes. And what gets you excited about working these days? Like what brings you to the drawing desk? What happens? And sometimes it's not something you do. All of a sudden, you're in the thick of it, and you realize you haven't got up from your table in an hour, and you're just in the zone. What is it that brings out that kind of hyper passion, that hyper focus when you're working these days?
I have in my midlife really discovered that the for me what my measure of success is. And I wish I had discovered it younger. And I don't know, I go back and forth on this, right? But like, and that is the the reward, the success is the time I get to spend making it.
Yeah.
And not
Yes.
yeah. And like so and it's taken me so long to figure this out. So there when we lived in Texas, there was a Mexican buffet place called Pancho's, and it's awful. It's awful. And it always gave us the trots every time. But it's delicious. Like it is delicious. And we were on this loop where we would eat at Pancho's, have a ball, and then before closing time that day, we would say, "We can never eat at Pancho's again. This is killing me." And then there's this period of time where we don't. And then at some point, someone will go, "We should go to Pancho's." And everyone goes, "Fucking yes. Let's go." And it would just circle, right?
Uh-huh.
And I've been on that loop with comics for so long where it's like, you know what, man? I gotta I need to go to this con so bad. I
Yeah.
need to get out of the house.
Got to go to Pancho.
And then you're like on the plane, like going to the con, going to the con. Set up the booth. First day of the con, they're like, Comic-Con 2022 is now open for business. And you go, oh, fuck, I
What
wish I
the
was home
fuck
drawing.
did I do?
Why aren't I home drawing right now?
No, I hear you. You want to, here's a guy that's been preaching against going to comic conventions since 2017 and to a very, very loud as I can often be, extent. And I came this close. It was like 2 weeks before Wizard World. They're calling it Fan Expo now. And I'm like, well, maybe I could still get an Artist Alley table. And I actually looked it up. They were all filled up. But if they hadn't have been, and if the price was right, I probably would have pulled the trigger for the same reason. I got to go to Pancho's. I got to go to Pancho's.
What's got 2 thumbs and is going to CXC this year?
Oh, but that one is a good one. Cartoonist Crossroads. Do you remember the year that we went to that one convention? and it was just tumbleweeds. I
Yeah.
won't mention any names, but it was.
But I was talking to Hammaker and Wes Molbash, who were going to table next to each other, and I'm like, "What? How many books are you guys bringing?" And Wes was like, "I think I sold 24 books last year at CXC," and I went, "What? Why am I doing this?
What am I doing to
Why?" And then
myself?
I immediately went, "Oh, okay, I'm
Yeah,
not. This isn't a convention. I'm just going to go hang out with my
yeah,
friends.
yeah.
I'll bring some books, but
No, in fact, if it wasn't for the National Cartoonist Society, I wouldn't be doing any shows at all. But
you're out of your
then,
mind to go to that thing."
which one? Which one?
The
ALA?
the, the Rubens.
What do you mean? I'm out of my mind to go to the Rubens? You know
Dude,
what?
do you know
You
how
know what?
long?
I enjoy the hell out of it,
I
and
know, I
nobody's
know,
more surprised than I am.
I know, but dude, do you know how long I tried to get into that organization?
I know,
And then I
I
get
know.
in and nobody talks to anybody. I set up a whole Discord server. They wouldn't tell anyone about it. I'm like, how do we talk to each other? They're like, well, go to the Rubens. And they want me
Yeah.
to pay $160 a year for the privilege of paying $370 a year
Mm-hmm.
for the ticket to the convention.
Yes. Yes. That you don't
And
get to
then I
sell
gotta
that.
pay for my flight and my hotel room
Mm-hmm. I know.
so that I can sit during the NCS meeting and listen to Arnold Roth go, "These kids are drawn with fire. And we should charge them more if they use one of those tablets."
Oh, that was another guy. His name will come to me, but I do remember that quote. We won't tag Roth with it, but it was
No,
another.
I don't. But anyway, yeah.
It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. But no, I actually, no one's more surprised than me.
Yeah,
But
no,
I went and enjoyed the hell out of it and talked my butt off, and I had a good time. I had a
I
good
did
time,
too.
but
When I went to the one in Portland, Corey and I
yeah,
gave a talk. We had a really good time.
the one I won't forgive myself was when it was in Philadelphia, and I refused to go to that one because I wasn't a member then, and I still didn't see the point. And again, $300, $370 is close to 400. I finally, got to the point where I was like, nah, I'm gonna give it a shot. But when it was right in my backyard, I didn't even bother to do it. And there
I
are a
would,
lot
I
of
would,
disappointing things. I mean, you're right about that. There are some things that I wish they'd do differently. But
yeah,
but on the other hand, like having said that, like Jamar is in charge of Philadelphia, and
you should
uh,
have a good time at those.
yeah, showed up at a couple of different conventions, and he's like, yeah, I got this whole thing going on. All you got to do is go sit down.
Yeah,
He's got us a really good placement at the American Library Association that's coming into
yeah, it's in
Philadelphia
Philly.
next. And so I'm gonna go out there. I don't know that I'm
You
gonna
should.
sell anything. No
No,
librarian
don't
is
worry
gonna
about that.
buy my stuff,
No,
but
that's not true, Brad. You should, and you want to meet those librarians. You want to meet them there because
I'll talk to everybody.
you're gonna love it, Brad. I'll tell you why you're gonna love the ALA. Because unlike comic conventions, the people there are very excited about your book.
That's what Dave said.
They're
That's what
excited
Dave. He
about
said the
books. They're
same thing.
excited you made a book. Like I can't tell you, I went last year and I would go again this year if my book had come out this year, but it's coming out in March of next year. So I'll go next year. But um I can't tell you the number one thing everyone said to me when they came by my signing at the Holiday House booth. They were like, "Congratulations." And I'm like, "Oh, on what?" And they're like, "On you made a book." And I'm like, "I made lots of I made lots of books." They're like, "But like it took me like 3 or 4 people for my Sarah, my one of my marketing people to go, it's kind of a big deal you made a book. You can
Yeah.
like." And I'm like, "Yeah, I guess so." Hey, Shayna's gonna be at LA in
I
Philly.
just saw that. Shayna, we'll have to meet up. I want to
Shayna,
congratulate you
we
in
missed one
person.
of her questions. She asked, "What do you do when you're stuck on a story beat?" And I didn't want to
Yeah.
answer that because my answer is I call Shayna.
You know what? The way I look at it, it's, have you ever tried to push somebody out of a snowbank in a car and they're stuck?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, if you push and push and push and push, that tire is going to wear down into the snow and form like glass. It'll never get out. It'll just turn that snow into glass. As a guy that grew up in Michigan, you learn real quick the only way you can get that car out of the snowbank is to rock it back and forth, is to go back and forth and back and forth and get momentum. And pretty soon you feel it when it's just right, you give it the gas and you're out of the snowbank. And I do that when I'm writing, and I'll just keep going after it. And then if I feel myself spinning my wheels, I stop, do something else for a little while, and I go back and I start to rock. And then I'll start to ask myself if I'm telling the wrong story. Like if I'm telling a story beat right now and Captain Heroic has to go and do this thing, right? Because my mind tends to work in a straight line, he's got to go do this thing. And nothing's happening to make that an interesting story beat. Sometimes I'm like, am I telling the right story? What if I go to the thing and tell the event that he's supposed to be at? What if I take the next story beat and start it from the event and show them, waiting for the thing to happen from that perspective? Or what if I go from a spectator's perspective and show that scene? Is that the better way to tell it? I have to ask myself time and time again, am I telling the right story here? Am I telling, because sometimes I get very linear in my thinking.
You really have to, and you have to be self-aware enough to also ask yourself, why am I hanging on to this? What,
Yes.
Right. That was a big deal for book one. Is I was really stuck, and my editor was like, finally, she was like, I know this is important to you, but and Ellen is not moving away as a plot point in this book. You have this scene where Alan's moving away because this happened with you and Rob, and you want to put it in the book.
Yes.
But
and it's important to you.
It's important to you, but keeping it in there as a plot point, as a B plot, is gumming up the works. And as soon as I was brave enough to let that go, then it opened up the whole story. But yeah, I mean, I don't really know how to advise people to do this because it's tough, right? It's like my wife telling me I need to get out of the house and be more social. It's like when your mom would say, just try to make friends, But it really is important to have kind of like a peer group. I think the Comic Lab Discord is a really great community.
Yeah. I've seen you jumping in there and helping some people out and sharing some thoughts. It's been great.
Yeah, you got to have someone to bounce that off of.
Yeah.
Even if it's just Chat GPT.
Maybe. If it's your own Lieutenant Commander Data. I'll tell you one more, just as long as we're wrapping this up. And I use this on my storytelling class when I used to teach it at University of the Arts. But I called it the Butso method. And I know it's stupid, right? But it's like you think about story, or at least the beginnings of a story, of having a character with a want or a need, but there's something standing in the way, so they do something about it.
Right.
It's the Butso method. And as dumb as that sounds, I've actually used that in my own writing, especially at the nascent period. I'm just starting a new chapter. And time again, in trying to figure out my own Butso statement, I realized that this story isn't character A's story at all. It's actually character B's story. I had to do that so I could nail down exactly what the conflict was and who's the best person to tell the story through. And I can't tell you the number of times that I started out, again, writing the wrong story until I focused in on, okay, whose conflict is this actually?
Right. Yeah, and it's again, it's all about serving the story and serving the point you want to get across the best.
Yeah. Well, as we're wrapping up here, Shayna, I will say, if you are in Philadelphia and if you're looking for lunch, grab me, give me a heads up. I'll take you across the street to Reading Terminal Market, where they have all of the best stuff. I've got all my favorite
I'll make
places.
sure you guys have each other's numbers.
Yeah. I will. I'll absolutely. I love taking people to Reading Terminal Market. It's really is kind of a gem, and it's right across the street from the convention center. So you'll find all kinds of good things there. Scott, thanks a lot for being on the live stream with me today. This was
Thanks for
absolutely
asking.
fantastic. We're gonna have to do
Yeah, it
this
was
again
awesome.
because we haven't talked about half the stuff that we can
No, I
still
know.
talk about. So we'll do a follow-up on this sometime soon.
Anytime.
Meanwhile, if you're watching the live stream, don't forget to follow Scott. You can click Scott's link and make sure you're following him on Substack. You can check my stuff out. Not only Evil Inc., but the Webcomics Handbook. I also do, Scott and I both do comics consultations. So if you're interested in a one-on-one talk just like this, you can book Scott or me, or do what that one guy did and book us both at the same time.
I know, right?
And we can talk comics with you. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Scott. We'll see you again Friday, and we'll see you again next Friday. And I'll stop stuttering and hit the end button. Bye-bye, everybody.
You whip.